Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name's Cal, and I'm an accounting student, but I'm interested in a lot of different things like business and tech and personal development, even philosophy. And the purpose behind this channel is to explore some of these topics. So if you find some of those things interesting as well, I hope you'll follow along. Today I want to give you my 5 best money practices or habits for students. What if I told you that people think about money more than any other topic? There was a study performed in 2019 that reported that 25% of Americans think about money all the time. The thing about money and personal finances is that it can be a huge point of stress and dominate our thought life, especially if we don't have good systems in place to manage our money or if we're simply short on money. For many, money is emotional, and we have strange emotional ties to thinking about money and to interacting with it. Whether these emotional attachments stem from childhood or just habits we've picked up along the way, our beliefs about money run deep. Unlike other needs in our life, like the amount of time we have left on this earth or the amount of food in our pantry, money seems to hold a special place in our hierarchy of needs. Whether we learn this from society or some other sort of pressure that we feel along the way, wanting and needing money is a very real reality for many people. In my experience, what sets money apart from some of these other needs is that it helps us enjoy other resources. For example, while we can't buy more time, we can use our money to free up the time that we're given, like buying Chipotle for dinner instead of cooking for an hour. But despite all this, and all of our emotional attachments or emotional baggage that comes with money, money is just an amoral tool that can help us achieve our goals. So let's get right to it. Here are my 5 best money practices for students. Number 1 is get a job. If you're a student, I would highly encourage you to get a job at some point in the year that works best for you. This might be over the summer, this might be a 10-hour-a-week job during the school year, this might be even a couple internships if that works out for you, but do something along the way to earn money in your college career. I think if you're just in school and you don't work for any amount during that period of time, you kind of miss out on the reward of working for a living. There's something intrinsically valuable in working a job and then receiving a paycheck. So in some capacity during your college career, definitely work for a period of time, whether that's in the summers or just for several hours a week during the school year. My second best practice is set a budget. If you are working a job or you have any sort of income, it's going to be very advantageous to set a budget so that you can live within your means. Now, when you're in college, these are probably going to be the lowest earning years of your life, if we're being honest. You're working probably for minimum wage, you're working for 10, 20 hours a week. Even if you're working full-time at minimum wage, you're just not making very much. And that can be stressful, and I definitely want to acknowledge that. The first thing I would say is try to minimize your fixed expenses. So if you can lower your rent, lower your car payment if you have one, lower your phone bill, any of those reoccurring monthly expenses, try to get those as low as reasonably possible or to a point that works for your budget. One thing I did when I was in school was move into a house off campus, and we were able to get rent that was half the price of standard student housing. So you can really reduce that fixed payment on a month-to-month basis. In addition to minimizing your fixed expenses, I would encourage you to automate your savings. So when you get your paycheck, set up an automatic withdrawal to withdraw the preset amount that you want to put into your savings on every payday. That way when you look at your checking account, you're just saying the amount that you have to spend. This has honestly probably been the biggest budget hack that I've ever implemented. So you're saving first, you're paying yourself first, as some would say. And then when you look at your checking, you can just live off that amount for the next 2 weeks. It makes things very simple. If it's just you, if you're not sharing a bank account with anyone, it's a simple way to manage your finances very easily. You can see how much you have left, and you can know that you've already saved for the future. You've already put that money away. And so you don't have to do any of this line item budgeting or money for your gas, for your groceries, etc. Even though I would encourage you to think about that sort of thing too. Like for instance, I try to spend $50 a week on groceries. So I have that number in mind when I go to the store. I'm not just throwing everything willy-nilly into my cart, but in general, automating your savings is gonna reduce that friction so that every 2 weeks you don't have to go in and manually move over that money. And I can honestly say, if I hadn't automated this process, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I wouldn't have saved or invested as much as I have to date. It makes life so much simpler. Ultimately, I would just underscore the fact that you probably are not going to be making much right now. So focus on covering your expenses and saving what you can. And if anything, focus on increasing your income through some side hustles or other jobs that you take on if you feel like you have the capacity. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. My third best practice is to invest early and to invest as early as possible, because compound interest and the magic of compound interest only works more so over time. The longer time that you have your money in the market, the more that it can grow and the more that it compounds on itself. I would highly recommend opening a Roth IRA if you don't have some kind of retirement account already set up. This is a tax advantage account, so what this means is that when you put the money in, you're not taxed on it. And when you pull the money out after a certain age, which I believe is 65, you will not be taxed either. So those are tax-free gains. Of course, when you're maybe just putting in a couple $100 a year or whatever it is that you can afford, this might not seem like a big deal. But investing in tax-advantaged accounts and maxing out those accounts is one significant way to really turbocharge your investment growth. If you're paying capital gains taxes consistently and not using tax-advantaged accounts, you're going to be paying a tremendous amount of money in tax that could otherwise just be invested in the market and continue to grow for you. Another great thing about the Roth IRA is that you can always pull out your principal penalty free. So every year, I think right now you can put in $6,500. That's the limit every year on the Roth IRA. So if you put that in, you can always pull out your $6,500 with no penalty. So in reality, it's such a good option, and I don't think enough young people are really taking advantage of a Roth IRA at a young age, even if you can only put in a couple $100 a year. Key here is just to get your money to work for you. You may think that putting your money in a savings account is a great thing. And in a way it is. If you are developing great money habits, great saving habits, that's a fantastic skill which you should continue doing. But in reality, if your money is just sitting in a savings account, inflation is actually occurring. So your money over time is actually becoming less valuable if it just sits in the savings account. Now, if your money goes into the market, it's going to be growing over time and it's going to be outpacing inflation. And so your money will actually be growing in value as opposed to actually losing value if it's just sitting in a bank account. I know that's a crazy concept. So focus on ways that your money can grow for you even when you aren't doing anything actively. Best practice number 4 is to consider alternate sources of income. This probably deserves another video entirely, but I would highly encourage you, if you are entrepreneurially minded, to consider other streams of income that you could develop over time. In particular, I would think about ideas that have a lot of long-term growth potential. You may need to start small, but then over time, you can really develop this into a significant business. I think some business ideas work very similarly to compound interest, where over time, even though you start small, you really start to see some significant gains as you continue to be consistent year over year over year. A couple examples of this would be a computer scientist who builds websites on the side, or an accountant who gets qualified with QuickBooks and starts a bookkeeping business when they're in school. Both of these ideas would be amazing side hustles, and then something you could develop into a full-time job afterwards if you wanted to. One key to being financially free eventually is having multiple streams of income. And this could be something that you start to work on at a young age, even as a freshman in college or even in high school. And down the road, this is gonna pay off in a huge way. My 5th best practice is perhaps a little controversial, but Ramit Sethi actually talks about this. Pick one area of your life where you allow yourself to spend freely. I'll give an example for myself. When I was in school, I loved coffee. I still love coffee. And so I would always let myself get a cup of coffee whenever I was walking to campus or on the way to school or anything like that. It was $3. It fit within my income just fine. And it brought me so much joy. I think we all know those people who say, oh, I'm cutting out that latte because I'm saving. Or they're cutting out some other tiny expense in order to save, which there's nothing wrong with that. But in reality, how much are you really saving from that one tiny purchase? And does that one purchase actually bring you a lot of joy? If it's an area that brings you a lot of joy, I would encourage you to pick one of these areas and to allow yourself to spend freely on it. Ultimately, we have money in order to further ourselves, further our goals, help the people around us, and to enjoy life. If we're not doing that with our money, then we should probably rethink how we're going about our financial lives. If you have an area in your life that you want to spend freely on, I'd be curious to hear about it. So maybe drop a comment with what you're thinking. I'd love to chat more. Ultimately, if you can set up a system early in life to manage your money, you're going to reduce so much friction and anxiety and frustration down the road. Building these habits early and laying the foundation for how you interact with money will have ramifications and benefits that you won't even fully understand now. It is really such a healthy and mature thing to do, to think and really consider how you want to interact with money and the role that money is going to play in your life. It can easily dominate your thoughts, and I mean this for people who have little money and for people who have a lot of money. You want there to be a balance, and I think that you want to live your life in such a way where money is not the end goal. It's just a tool that allows us to do what really matters in this life. I hope using some of these tools like automating your savings and investing early will help you think more critically about how you are navigating your own financial world. Again, I know for me, if I wasn't doing some of these things, I would not have been able to save or invest what I've been able to save and invest so far. That's all for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed these best money practices and I hope you find them helpful. If you're still watching at this point, Thanks a lot, and I hope to see you in the next one.